Come in.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Jamie.
Jamie, hi. I'm John.
I'm here to speak with you today, John.
Yeah.
So, what brings you in today?
Well, I came in because I've been feeling kind of tired lately, and I don't know, maybe a little bit sad or something, and I don't really know why. And I am. It seems like I'm spending a lot of time by myself and stuff that I normally like to do. I just can't get up the energy to do. And it's not, I'm not suicidal or anything like that, but I just, I've gotten in this mood and I just can't seem to snap out of it.
Okay. Do you live alone?
Yeah.
Okay. How long have you been living by yourself?
Oh, most of my adult life I've lived by myself, yeah.
Okay. And how long have you been feeling this way?
Well, since early February, it was like the second week in February.
Did something happen the second week of February?
No. No, I mean the big change is I'm new to Seattle. I moved here beginning of the year, but no, in February, there's nothing I can put my finger on that would have triggered this.
Where did you move from?
I'm from upstate New York.
Okay. So that's a long ways to move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a ways.
Was there something behind the move that motivated you to move?
Well, it's something I'd thought about for years and years. Right after I got out of college, kind of my graduation present to myself was I had a motorcycle, and I'd always wanted to travel around the country. And so the day after graduation, I hopped on the bike and headed west, and I went through Seattle. I spent a few hours here, and I thought, well, this is pretty nice for a big city. And it's always been kind of in the back of my mind that if I ever decided to do the big city experience, maybe I'd give Seattle a try. And last winter, things just kind of came together where it looked like it was going to be, looked like a good time to make a change. And so I said, all right, I'm moving to the city. So I sold my house and most of my stuff and came out.
That's a big change, for sure. What types of activities did you enjoy before you started feeling this way? What were you doing regularly that made you happy? Or
well, I mean, I worked. I wouldn't say that necessarily made me happy, but that's what I spent a lot of my time doing. But I didn't have a lot of hobby time because I lived out in the woods. I built a little house out in the woods, and I've got 12 acres, and it takes a lot of work. It's a off the grid house and big garden, all this sort of stuff. But as far as hobby type stuff, I've always skied. Back there you learn how to ski when you're a kid, and bicycles. I've always enjoyed two-wheel vehicles. Bicycles, motorcycles. I play the banjo. Like to read. Just that sort of stuff.
Okay. Do you have any social supports out here in Seattle, or are you kind of just out here on your own?
Yeah, I didn't. I moved out here not knowing anybody.
Okay. Okay. Sometimes, when we make a big move like that, it can be challenging to, make those connections, social supports, and, it sounds like you've been isolating and not wanting to get out.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really felt like doing much for quite a while now.
Mm-hmm. Have you experienced depression before in the past?
As an adult, nothing like this.
No. On a typical day, what did you do yesterday, for instance?
Oh, typical day, I don't do anything.
No.
I mean, there are times I don't even put my, outside clothes on because I know I'm not even going to leave the apartment. So yesterday there isn't a real routine, to my day, just because I get up at different times, but the stuff I do during the day, I'll watch a little TV. I spend a bunch of time playing stupid games on the computer, over and over. I've been taking a lot of naps. I don't do very much.
No. So are you not working right now?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So are you retired, or do you intend to look for work?
Eventually, yeah, I'm kind of in a position where I can coast for a while, but not forever. And no, I'm not retired, but I'm not gonna. I don't want to be looking. I don't feel like looking for work, and I wouldn't be able to do a very good job for anybody, until I kind of get back to normal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What types of goals do you have besides looking for work again and getting back to your usual self? What do you see for yourself in the future?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a big goal type person. Other than those things, I mean, getting back to feeling like myself is the most important thing for me right now.
Okay. So I'm hearing there's a lack of structure in your day, and you're staying home and isolating a lot, and those certainly can contribute to just feeling down. Like, I hear what you're saying. Have you thought of possibly just picking maybe one activity a day? Because what I'm hearing is you need to push yourself, simply taking a walk or something like that. Or going to bed every night at 10 o'clock or something like that. Have you noticed the lack of routine contributing?
Well, yeah, but I don't want to climb into bed if I know I'm not going to go to sleep, and that's the case a lot of the time. And I don't have any problem thinking about stuff to do. It's not like little kid saying, Mom, I'm bored. It's there's no end to stuff to do. It's just can't get up the energy to do it.
Do you this question, some people can get sensitive, but do you use any substances at all?
Drugs, no. This is kind of interesting. Part of what's going on now is every evening I'll have a couple drinks, 2-3 drinks. I come home from work, I get cleaned up, sit down, and it could be anything. I could have a cocktail or beer, a glass of wine, whatever I'm in the mood for. And in the winter, and I read, whatever book I'm on then. And in the winter time, I've got a wood stove. I sit next to the wood stove. And summertime, I've got this screened-in porch, keep the bugs out, and I'll sit out there. And that's my favorite part of the day. I really enjoy that. And now I'm not in the mood to drink at all. So since this started, I went from 2 or 3 drinks a night to now, I might have 1 beer a week or something. I just don't feel like drinking.
Okay.
So you mentioned depressed earlier. I know, that's, part at least of what's going on. And it's weird because you think, people drink when they get depressed. I don't feel like it, It's always been something to do when I'm happy. I'm home from work, put a long day in. Now I'm all nice and clean. I've got my book and I've got my beer and I'm happy. Yeah. And I don't feel like that anymore.
Do you have any family that you keep in contact with at all?
Well, very little. My folks are still around. They're back in Plattsburgh is the name of that little town where I spent most of my life. They're there, and I've got one sibling, an older brother. He lives in New York City, but I don't communicate with any of them, very much. Little, but not much.
Why is that?
My brother and I don't really have anything in common. And it's not like we're estranged or anything, we haven't sworn off talking to each other, but we just, there's not much to talk about. The only thing, that keeps us communicating at all is just because we're brothers. And my folks, my dad's not a very nice guy, and he's mellowed out some, but he's 91. I don't think it's mellowing. I think he's just getting too old to be a jerk. So I've spent I've always stayed away from him as much as possible. And my folks, they've been together forever. God, how long have they been married now? Like 70 years almost. Wow. Mom's 90, Dad's 91. And so, my mom's okay. But I go see her, that means I got to see my dad, and I'm not interested in that, so I don't have much to do with them.
Do they still live in New York?
Yeah, in Plattsburgh.
Okay. Did you ever marry or have children?
No kids. I was married once, briefly. It didn't last very long.
And when was that?
We got married in 1985 and split up the next year.
Okay. How come it was so short?
It was a mistake in the first place, but this was woman, she's German, and she was traveling here, and acquaintance of mine who had met her, that's a long story, but he introduced us, and we kind of hit it off. And my great-grandparents moved over from Germany, so I've got that background. I speak a little bit of German, and I learned from my grandmother. And so we kind of hit it off, and she stayed with me, and then we decided to get married, partly just so she could work here legally, so it was kind of a convenience thing. She wanted to work. And within a few months, it was just clear, man, we should have known each other better, before we did something like this. So we hung on till the next year, and then, it's a mutual thing. She wanted to go back to Germany.
That's something that you've been thinking about and for your future. Are you interested in that?
Oh, that's not something I think is very likely at this point. I've been living by myself since college, except for with her, and I've had a few romances here and there, but nothing serious, and kind of think it's not really very likely anymore that I'll have anything serious.
Why do you think it's unlikely?
Well, I'm just not that good at meeting people, and I'm getting old, so there's that's not something that I think about all that much. If it happened, fine. I'm not trying to avoid it, but I just don't think. That's only with her is the only relationship I've ever had that was serious. I think I've got a lot of years of that not happening, and it's just not very likely.
Well, I'd like to switch gears a little. You mentioned you're getting old. Do you have any health conditions?
Nothing chronic, no. I've been pretty lucky, and until recently, I took pretty good care of myself. Got a lot of exercise and stuff, so
okay.
I don't feel so hot now, but I've always been pretty lucky and pretty careful, and so I've got a back issue, but most anybody who my line of work is going to end up with a back issue.
What kind of work do you do?
I've worked as a carpenter for most of my life.
That's hard work.
It is hard work, and I've gotten more and more careful as I've gotten older. And I'm not a big beefy guy, so if there's stuff I just don't tackle at all.
What kind of back issues do you have?
Oh, I screwed up my back when I was a teenager, just doing stupid stuff. And every once in a while it goes out, and I'm laid up for a while. But it's debilitating, but it's nothing serious. And so.
Does the back issue, do you think, does that have anything to do with how you've been feeling since
no.
February? Okay.
No, and it's it's been bothering me more, mainly because I've just been laying around too much. That's not good for it, but it hasn't gone out, since I moved here. That's not part of it.
What kind of exercise did you enjoy when you were exercising?
Well, I've never, been a gym person or anything like that. Just working carpentry, I got a lot of exercise. But then riding bicycles and skiing and snowshoeing, all that stuff. And then taking care of my place. It's a lot of work, a lot of gardening is supposed to burn a lot of calories, and every year I had a great big garden. And so it's not, I don't work out. I don't really, I never really needed to.
Do you have a garden now, or was that?
Oh, no.
That was back then?
No, I'm in an apartment, and now there's no garden.
Are there any places to walk near your apartment?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of picked, I'm up on Capitol Hill, and that's part of the reason that I chose that location. I wanted to be somewhere where everything I needed was, I could walk to. Mm-hmm. That's kind of new to me, because living out in the woods back home, I have to drive everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Are you driving now in the city, or?
I've got a car, but I don't go anywhere. It's just sitting in the garage.
Mm-hmm. So when you came to Seattle, how were you feeling when you came here and arrived? What was your mental state then?
Yeah, normal. Just I felt like myself, and of course, more excited than usual because the change and busy and stuff. But I just I felt like myself. I don't know. I was fine.
What does your self look like?
Well, I don't know. I don't think I've really changed, much. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, since I was a junior high, I guess, is when I started kind of forming into the person that I am now, and I think I've been pretty consistent about stuff that's important to me, since then. And now, it's like I don't know this guy anymore. Mm-hmm. So I don't really want to, I don't want to get to know him. Mm-hmm. I want him, I want the old John back.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the old John might say to you right now?
Well, I think he would be puzzled why anybody would be living like this. Mm. And I am too. I don't know why this is happening.
What conditions is your apartment in? Are you keeping it clean, or?
Yeah, I know I'm depressed, but it's not like I'm, not taking a shower and, all that sort of stuff. I've always, my house, back home it was neat, and it's easy, when you live by yourself, it's a lot easier to, have everything in its place. And it was a little place. I don't like big houses. It's a little place and pretty easy to keep the inside, clean and organized. And now, I've gotten sloppier for sure, but it's not like you'd walk in and say, "Oh my God, it's fine."
Can you tell me more about, you said you stayed away from your parents, or you stayed away from your father, really. So did you leave the house at 18?
I was 17.
17.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I finished high school a little bit early. Took a lot of classes so I could get out as soon as possible. So I was able to graduate a little bit early. And I was 17. And then I moved out.
Does your brother have the same feelings that you do about your father?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad was a lot harder on my brother than me. My brother's, he's 3 years older than me, and he's gay, and when we were kids, people could tell he was different, but people didn't, peg him. Now everybody would say, "Oh yeah, he's gay." Back then, when I was a kid, I didn't even know what gay would mean or homosexual would mean. And so he got a lot of crap from everybody, including my dad. And my dad, I'm sure, he knew about, he would call them queers, and I didn't even know what he meant, when I was a kid. But he would tell my brother, don't act queer, don't be a sissy. And but I mean that was the nice stuff that my dad, said to my brother. And he caught all sorts of crap at school. So yeah, he doesn't like my dad.
Yeah.
No.
Did your brother's homosexuality affect your guys' relationship at all, or were you pretty supportive? Or?
Oh, I don't care about that. When I was a kid, the way it affected our relationship was people took stuff out on him, and then he's 3 years older, he was 3 years bigger, and then he'd turn around and take it out on me. Mm-hmm. And so, it didn't have anything to do with, his being gay didn't have anything to do with our relationship. What had to do with it was, him just having somebody smaller than him, to take his frustrations out on. So, I've forgiven him, for that stuff. He beat me up a lot. Yeah. And I've put a lot of thought into what he went through. And so it's not like, our, growing up has made me hate him or anything. I did when I was a kid, but, I got over that.
Yeah, it's pretty typical for siblings.
Yeah, but we just, we don't have anything in common, so we'll talk every once in a while, but it's rare.
So when you left the home at 17, what did you do?
There was this, we had an orchard, I grew up working in the apples, and in high school, I worked on the family orchard when I was little. My dad, had us out there doing stuff. And I worked in this other orchard in high school because, my dad didn't pay us, but I was earning money in this other orchard, and there was this guy older than me then, he would have been in his 20s, I guess, and he had a little, mobile home, in this mobile home park, a little cheap mobile home. He went to Mexico for 6 months. He said, "Hey, you wanna take care of my place?" So I paid the lot fee, which, back then it was, I don't know, $70 a month or something, and lived in the trailer until I went to started college.
And when you started college, did you remain distant from your father on a personal level?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been distant from my father as long as I can remember. I spent my childhood trying to stay away from him. So yeah, that's been pretty much a lifelong thing.
Well, to bring it back to Seattle, when you got here, was there anything that interested you?
Oh yeah. I mean, there was lots of stuff I was looking forward to. Plattsburgh is, it's not tiny, but it's not very big. It's 25,000 people, something like that. And its population is really homogenous. There's some Mexican folks who've moved in in the last 10 years or something. But other than that, it's I don't think there's ever been more than one black family in town. I was looking forward to going somewhere where there was some diversity, a place that looked a little more like the real world does than where I grew up. And when I was a kid, the only I guess I forgot about that. There was a Chinese family because there was a Chinese restaurant. That was the only food available that wasn't typical American diner stuff. And now, there's a Thai restaurant, there's a couple of Mexican restaurants, but it's nothing like Seattle, you can get everything here, so that's part of what I wanted was, to live around, different sorts of people from different places and interesting food, and I thought maybe I'd get a little culture, I'd go to an opera or something like that.
Did you go to an opera? No.
No, I haven't done that. That, was in the back of my mind, but I don't listen to music a lot, but I thought, maybe I would more if I was somewhere where I could hear live music. And, I went out a few times, early on, but I haven't done much of that. So, I also, like I mentioned, I think I mentioned, I'd have to drive everywhere, back home, because living out in the woods. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to, stop using a vehicle more, and, that's a lot easier when you can, in the city than it is in the country. I don't know, lots of stuff.
Did you feel like moving to Seattle was a disappointment, or was there something that was a disappointment?
Oh, no. No, there hasn't been a disappointment. I'm disappointed in me, not in Seattle. And there haven't been, there haven't been any big, rude surprises. I haven't gotten mugged yet or anything like that. There's been some little things I didn't expect, but no, Seattle's been fine. It's me that's not fine. It's not Seattle.
Well, that is all the time we have today. I need to wrap this up. I would like your feedback.
Okay. Everybody has a different way of ending these.
I don't know.
So, First, I want to introduce myself. I am John.
Okay.
So I didn't make up a name. We're allowed to do that, but I didn't do it.
Okay.
So I want to hear first, how did that feel to you? How did it seem like it went?
I have experience doing this, but for me, it was like, what happened? Like, what happened in February? You know, like, what? So, yeah, that was something, and it seemed like you were, and I didn't want to put too much pressure on that, but I don't know. I have this hunch that something happened that you are not telling me, maybe. I don't know. Or you're just depressed, or you're just you moved to a new town, you don't know anybody, and you're bored now, and I don't know.
Well, so you're puzzled.
I'm puzzled.
And yeah, I don't know what triggered it either. So this is, a compilation of stuff. They give us a scenario and they give us kind of some guidelines, and then we fill in a lot of stuff. So everybody's story, I'm sure, is very different, though. I've never actually seen my colleagues do their shtick, so
Okay.
I don't know what they're doing. But anyway, we have some similar stuff, but then we fill in a lot of blanks. I don't know what happened either
Okay.
with this guy, and the scenario that they give us, it's depression after a move, but it's not depression caused by a move. So it's kind of there's different stuff that could be happening. There could be a physiological thing, and something that you may want to think about with this client is finding out if they're hooked up with a doctor and see about that. Who knows? Maybe that day, maybe he had a little stroke. Maybe maybe it's a thyroid issue. Who knows? So there's lots of possibilities, to kind of keep in mind. But so you're puzzled. But how did it go? Other than creating a big question in your mind.
I thought it was okay.
And what parts are you happy with? What?
I'm happy with you sharing about your childhood and the dad stuff, the family stuff, just kind of your background and some challenges you had. That was because I was trying to build rapport, and it's kind of hard in this setting. So yeah.
Do you think? So you got information from this guy. Did building rapport work?
Maybe if we met again, I think we might have a more deeper, meaningful conversation and actually like work on stuff. I could give you some tools or something, but I think just hearing your story out is important to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll answer that question for you. Yes, it worked. Him willing to tell you stuff about his family that he doesn't talk to people about is some indication that the rapport was good. You made him comfortable. So he's willing to open up, and he's not an opening up sort of a fella.
Okay.
So lots of good stuff there. You really nice entrance, and entrances are really important to me. I'm figuring out right away, am I going to like this person or not? Mm-hmm. So nice, friendly greeting, and you've got a really quiet, attentive style that works well with me. Nice flow, good kind of you want to set up a situation where the client's talking a lot and you're talking a little, and that happened. Mm-hmm. So your questions and your comments were succinct, and so I wasn't spending time listening to you. Yeah. I was spending time, you got me thinking and you got me talking, and that's how you get to know this guy and want to help him. A couple of suggestions. Mm-hmm. One, it started kind of abruptly for me.
Yeah.
What do you think you could, what other ways could you start it?
Maybe explaining who I am. Like, my name is Jamie. I'm a counselor here. I do intakes or something, just to kind of let you know who I am a little bit. Yeah, instead of just, why are you here?
Yeah, and this guy, he's never done this before, and he's kind of, in real life, you might not get much of we do that long opening statement, which is pretty much scripted, where, I'm tired and a little bit sad, and things I normally do, and so on. You might not get any of that if they're not comfortable right up front. So it may be helpful for you to find out if he's seen a counselor before.
Yeah.
And that can help you gauge how much of an introduction you've got to do. A little bit of agenda setting. So we've got 35, 45 minutes, and since you haven't done this before, and we haven't met before, I want to tell you a little bit about how these things normally work. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be real long, or you'll bore him. But a little bit more to, give him a chance to get comfortable, and then, so what brings you in today?
Yeah.
There was one point, I think, did you ask me if I could think of one thing to do?
Yeah, that was.
And why are you making that face about that?
Because it didn't, because it just didn't feel right coming out. Like, I just know, because if you did, then why you wouldn't be here? I feel like if you knew to work on things and, push yourself to do things, you can't do it, then you wouldn't be here. So
yeah, I think part of it is that he's not motivated, and you're not going to motivate him very easily. But the other thing also is, I think that this guy's just not quite ready for homework yet.
Yeah.
And maybe next visit, maybe visit after that. But right now, that's just kind of, man, I'm not ready for that yet.
Yeah, definitely.
So something to think about. And I know it's so tempting. You want to fix this guy, and you want to fix him now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to be quite that easy. You want to leave him with some hope, and you did that.
Oh, good.
And I think that's a good way to close, is kind of, so we're out of time now, and I've learned a lot from you. I'm really happy that we were able to talk, and I'm concerned about you, because I know this is, you're going through a really hard time, and I want to help. And I think that I can help you, and I think that you can get out of this. And if you're willing to come back, then we can get to know each other a little bit more, and come up with some ideas, something like that.
Yeah.
But it feels good to me to hear that someone's concerned about me. So that's something to think about also. How did empathy go in this exchange?
I thought very well. I feel like that's a skill. There's just something that's really natural for me. How did it feel for you?
Yeah, good. I could tell that you were concerned. You're very attentive, and you have an expressive face, so I can tell, from looking at you. It doesn't hurt to add a few empathic statements, like that just sounds tough. I'm sorry that you have all this to deal with now. I think that you don't want to overdo it or push people away, but a little bit of that. You don't need to do much of that, because, like you say, you're an empathic person. It just comes across from your affect. So lots of good stuff there. What is it that you normally do, that your experience?
I work for DESC. Have you heard of it?
I used to volunteer there at the coffee counter.
Oh, great, yeah. I work at the Kerner Scott House now, but I've worked at the Morrison, the New Christ Solution Center.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like a CSS housing case manager.
Yeah,
Just
great.
doing that.
Yeah. DESC is I haven't volunteered there for years, but it's one of my favorite organizations.
You should come back. We need help.
There's always a need. Well, part of the reason I quit was because of this job. I do a lot of this, mainly over at the medical school, but it's real irregular hours, and I kept having to call and say, no, I can't come in for my volunteer shift. And so anyway, I don't do that anymore, but I know there's a need, and my wife and I, when we can, we throw some money DESC's way, because we're very fond of the organization. So good for you, and good for you for becoming a social worker. I'm very fond of people doing that. So, any questions for me about how it went? Any part of it?
I don't think we've covered it. I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you are released.
Thank you. It was nice to meet you, John.
Nice to meet you.